He mocked his wife for being fat, unaware she was the billionaire his mistress worked for. The restaurant went quiet. Dr. Amelia Hayes sat frozen at the table, her husband Ethan's voice carrying across the dining room of the city's most exclusive steakhouse, loud enough for everyone to hear. Maybe if you actually cared about your appearance, I wouldn't be embarrassed to be seen with you in public. 40 people. Amelia counted them. 40 witnesses to her humiliation, all pretending not to stare while their phones subtly angled to capture the scene. She looked down at her plate, at the salad she'd ordered because ordering anything else would give Ethan another excuse to comment on her weight. At her hands, trembling slightly, the wedding ring that had once meant forever now feeling like a shackle. "I'm speaking to you," Ethan said, louder now. "Or are you too busy thinking about dessert to listen?" Laughter. Nervous, uncomfortable, but still laughter. From the couple at the next table. From the waiter hovering uncertainly nearby. From Ethan himself, pleased with his own cruelty. Amelia lifted her eyes to her husband. The man she'd married 10 years ago, before the medical crisis that had changed everything. Before the emergency surgery that had saved her life but destroyed her metabolism. Before the weight gain that had transformed Ethan from loving husband to sneering stranger. "I'm listening," she said quietly. "Good. Because we need to talk about your portion sizes. You've been eating like Ethan." Her voice was soft but carried a warning he was too self-absorbed to hear. "Not here." "Why not here?" "You don't seem to care about embarrassing me with how you look." "Why should I care about embarrassing you with the truth?" The truth. As if her body was a moral failure. As if the autoimmune disease that had nearly killed her 2 years ago was something she'd chosen. Amelia set down her fork with precise, controlled movements. "I'd like to go home. We haven't finished dinner." "I'm still eating." Ethan cut into his steak. $48, paid for with money he thought came from Amelia's family trust. "You can wait." She could. She'd been waiting for 6 months. Ever since she discovered the affair with Vanessa Keller, his beautiful, ambitious mistress who worked at Nexus Tech. Vanessa, who had no idea that her demanding, invisible boss, the woman she called the director and complained about constantly, was the same woman whose husband she was sleeping with. Vanessa, who would be at the Vision Summit in 3 days. The Vision Summit where everything Ethan thought he knew about his life was going to detonate. "Hey everyone! Welcome to the most satisfying revenge story you'll see this year. I'm so glad you're here. Tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? I love connecting with all of you around the world. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do it right now because this story is about a woman who's been underestimated, mocked, and betrayed by the man who has no idea he's living off her billions. We're talking sweet, cold, calculated justice. Hit that subscribe button, you're going to want to see this. Now let's get back to Amelia, because her husband has absolutely no idea what's about to hit him. They drove home in silence, Ethan's phone buzzing constantly with texts he didn't bother to hide. Amelia knew they were from Vanessa. She'd known about the affair for 6 months, had known the moment it started, actually, because Nexus Tech's security protocols flagged when employees engaged in relationships with potential conflicts of interest. Vanessa had listed her relationship status as involved with Ethan Hayes in the background check update, not realizing that Ethan Hayes was married to the company's founder and CEO. Amelia had read the report in her top-floor office overlooking the city, the one with no name on the door and security clearance required for access. Had seen the photos of Vanessa and Ethan at hotels, restaurants, the apartment Ethan had rented with money from their joint account. She could have confronted him then. could have filed for divorce, taken everything, which was literally everything since every asset they owned came from her fortune, not his. But Dr. Amelia Hayes hadn't built a $12 billion tech empire by being impulsive. She'd built it by being smarter than everyone else in the room. So instead of confronting Ethan, she'd started documenting, investigating, planning,
and waiting.
They pulled into the driveway of their mansion in Pacific Heights, purchased with Amelia's money, maintained with Amelia's money, filled with luxury Ethan enjoyed while contributing absolutely nothing. He'd quit his mediocre marketing job 3 years into their marriage, claiming he wanted to find himself. He'd found himself on golf courses and in bars, and eventually in bed with his wife's employee. "I'm going out," Ethan announced as they entered the house. Some of the guys want to grab drinks. The guys being Vanessa. Amelia knew because she had access to both their calendars. "Have fun," she said. Ethan paused, surprised by her compliance. Usually she'd ask questions, try to convince him to stay home, pathetically seek his attention like the desperate woman he believed her to be. "You're not going to complain? Would it matter if I did?"
No.
He smirked. "But it's nice that you're finally accepting reality. We both know this marriage is over. You're just too afraid to admit it." Amelia looked at him, really looked at him, at the designer clothes she'd paid for, the Rolex on his wrist, her anniversary gift to him, the car keys in his hand for the Tesla in the garage, titled in her name. "You're right," she said quietly. "This marriage is over." Ethan's eyes lit up. This was what he'd been pushing for. The admission. The surrender. "I'll have my lawyer send over papers," he said quickly. "We'll keep it simple. Clean split, no drama." "Of course." Amelia smiled slightly. "I'm sure your lawyer will be very thorough about asset division."
Definitely.
"I know you come from money, but I've contributed 10 years of my life to this relationship. I deserve compensation for that." Mediocrity. Neither of them knew they were talking about the same woman. Neither of them knew that Dr. Amelia Hayes, reclusive billionaire, tech genius, and the woman Forbes called the most powerful CEO you've never seen, was done being invisible. 3 days until the Vision Summit. 3 days until Ethan discovered that mocking your wife's appearance is a terrible idea when your wife controls your entire existence. 3 days until Vanessa learned that sleeping with a board member's spouse was grounds for immediate termination. 3 days until justice. Amelia smiled at her reflection in the window. Let them have their 3 days. Let them feel safe and superior and certain of their victory. It would make the fall so much sweeter. And there's the setup. Ethan has no idea who his wife really is. Vanessa has no idea her boss is the woman she's helping destroy. And Amelia is 3 days from the most epic public takedown you've ever seen. If you need to see what happens at that Vision Summit, if you have to watch these two face the consequences of their actions, hit that subscribe button right now. This is just the beginning. The revenge is coming. And it's going to be glorious.
Subscribe.
Let's watch this together. The morning after the restaurant humiliation, Amelia woke at 5 a.m. as always. Ethan's side of the bed was empty. He'd stayed at Vanessa's apartment. She didn't care anymore. She showered, dressed in comfortable clothes Ethan would call frumpy, and went to her home office. The real one in the basement that Ethan had never bothered to explore because he assumed it was storage. It was actually mission control for a $12 billion empire. 7 monitors lined the wall, displaying real-time data from Nexus Tech's global operations. The company she'd founded 15 years ago in a garage, built from nothing but her doctoral research in quantum computing and a vision for secure, unhackable communication systems. Governments used her technology. Fortune 500 companies, militaries, and almost none of them knew her face. Dr. Amelia Hayes had cultivated anonymity deliberately. Her executive team reported to the director via secure channels. Board meetings happened remotely. She'd given exactly 3 interviews in 15 years, all audio only. The world knew Nexus Tech, but they didn't know her, which was exactly how she'd wanted it, until Ethan had made her anonymity into a weapon he used for his affair. Amelia pulled up Vanessa's employee file. Vanessa Keller, 28, executive assistant to the VP of Operations. MBA from a decent school. 5 years at Nexus Tech, 3 promotions, all legitimate until 6 months ago when she'd started sleeping with director James Morrison, who'd inflated her performance reviews in exchange for the affair. Morrison had been terminated last week for ethics violations. Vanessa thought she'd been spared because of her own merit. She was wrong. Amelia had kept Vanessa employed specifically for the Vision Summit. Specifically so she'd be required to attend with her partner. Specifically so Ethan would walk into the trap. Her phone buzzed. A text from Dr. Sarah Chen, her actual best friend and the only person besides her lawyers who knew the full truth about her marriage. "How are you holding up?" Amelia replied, "2 more days. I can last 2 more days." "You're sure about going through with this publicly? You could divorce him quietly, take everything, never see him again. He humiliated me publicly. He gets destroyed publicly. Remind me never to cross you." Amelia smiled slightly. Sarah was one of the few people who knew the real story, not just about Ethan's affair, but about the medical crisis that had changed everything. 2 years ago, Amelia had collapsed during a board meeting. Emergency surgery revealed an autoimmune disease attacking her thyroid. The treatment had saved her life, but destroyed her metabolism. She'd gained 80 pounds in 6 months despite eating less than before. Ethan's response had been immediate and cruel. The man who'd promised in sickness and in health had instead started making comments about gym memberships and portion control. Had stopped touching her. Had moved to the guest room, temporarily, and never moved back. Had started the affair with Vanessa within 8 months of Amelia's diagnosis. And through it all, Ethan had never once asked about her company, her work, her health beyond the superficial. Had never wondered how they afforded their lifestyle when he didn't work. He'd assumed family money, old wealth, trust funds. The irony was devastating. Amelia had come from nothing. Raised by a single mother who cleaned houses, she'd earned every scholarship, every degree, every success through brilliance and relentless work. She'd built Nexus Tech from her doctoral research, turned it into an empire, and done it all while Ethan coasted on her money and took credit for her good taste in their social circles. He introduced her as my wife. She does charity work, while wearing suits she bought and driving cars she paid for. And now he was planning to divorce her and take his fair share. Amelia pulled up the prenuptial agreement they'd signed 10 years ago. Ethan had insisted on it, ironically, because he'd thought she was the one with family money and he wanted to protect himself from gold diggers in case things didn't work out. The prenup was brutally clear. In the event of divorce, each party kept what they brought into the marriage and earned during it. Joint assets would be split 50-50ths. Ethan had brought nothing, earned nothing, contributed nothing. Everything, the house, the cars, the investments, the bank accounts, was in Amelia's name or held in trust she controlled. Ethan thought the mansion was theirs because he lived in it. He was about to learn the difference between living somewhere and owning it. Amelia's second phone, her work phone, the one connected to Nexus Tech, buzzed with a message from her head of security. Vision Summit final preparations complete. All senior staff confirmed attendance. Keller has RSVP'd with +1. Ethan Hayes. Do you want us to flag him at entry?
Amelia replied, no. Let him in.
I want him comfortable until the moment I take the stage. She spent the rest of the morning reviewing the presentation she'd give at the summit. Nexus Tech's new quantum encryption breakthrough, the expansion into 3 new markets, the announcement of her $5 billion commitment to STEM education for underprivileged youth, and the unveiling of the director's true identity. She'd planned every word, every pause, every moment for maximum impact. At noon, her lawyer called. Amelia, Ethan's attorney, just sent over divorce papers. They're requesting half of all marital assets, alimony, and the Pacific Heights house. Let me guess, they claim he's entitled because he supported my charity work for 10 years?
Essentially, yes.
They're painting you as a wealthy heiress and him as a devoted husband who sacrificed his career for the marriage. Amelia laughed. Actually laughed. Send back our counteroffer. He gets nothing. 0 assets, 0 alimony. He can keep his personal belongings and the clothes I bought him. That's it. They'll fight that. Let them. Discovery will be fun when they realize there is no family trust fund. That every asset we own comes from my company. That I'm not an heiress. I'm the source. Amelia's voice went cold. And make sure they know if Ethan contests, I'll pursue criminal charges for the $73,000 he spent on his mistress using our joint credit card. That's theft of marital assets. Her lawyer was quiet for a moment. You've really thought this through. I've had 6 months and the resources of a $12 billion corporation. Of course I've thought it through. She hung up and checked the time. Ethan would be at the golf course now, living his best life on her money. Vanessa would be at the Nexus Tech offices, working on preparations for the Vision Summit she thought would advance her career. Neither of them checking social media, where the tech world was buzzing about the director's unprecedented decision to finally appear in person. Neither of them reading the Forbes article published that morning. The mystery CEO, why Nexus Tech's founder, is finally going public. Neither of them connecting the dots. Amelia pulled up the live security feed from Nexus Tech headquarters. Found Vanessa at her desk, on the phone, laughing. She unmuted the audio, one of the perks of owning the building. I know, right? He's finally divorcing her. The fat wife. God, you should see her. She's let herself go so badly. But Ethan says once the divorce is final, we can go public with our relationship. He's getting the house in Pacific Heights. We're going to live there together. The woman on the other end. That's amazing. And what about your boss? The scary director? Ugh, I have to see her at the Vision Summit tomorrow. She's finally doing a public appearance. Probably some old frumpy woman who's mad that young people like me are moving up. Vanessa laughed. I'm not worried. I've been killing it here. I bet I get promoted within 6 months. Amelia muted the feed. Tomorrow, Vanessa. Tomorrow you meet the director. Tomorrow you learn that young, beautiful, and ambitious means nothing when you're mediocre, unethical, and sleeping with your boss's husband. Tomorrow everything changes. Amelia closed her laptop and looked at the Vision Summit presentation one final time. In 24 hours, she'd walk onto that stage. In 24 hours, Ethan would realize the woman he'd mocked was the woman who owned him. In 24 hours, the invisible billionaire would become very, very visible. And the revenge would be perfect. Can you feel the tension building? Amelia has planned everything down to the last detail. Vanessa has no idea what's coming. Ethan is already spending money from a divorce settlement he'll never get. And in 24 hours, it all explodes. If you're not subscribed, I genuinely don't understand what you're waiting for. This is going to be the most satisfying public destruction you've ever witnessed. Hit that subscribe button.
Smash that like.
Drop a comment telling me what you think Ethan's face is going to look like when Amelia walks on stage. The Vision Summit was held at the Fairmont Grand Ballroom, a space that cost $50,000 to rent for the evening and could hold 400 people comfortably. All 372 Nexus Tech employees were required to attend. Senior staff were expected to bring partners. Vanessa Keller arrived at 6:30 p.m. wearing a red dress that cost 2 months' salary and had Ethan Hayes on her arm. Ethan looked smug.
Confident.
He wore the Tom Ford suit Amelia had bought him for their anniversary, the anniversary he'd forgotten while planning a weekend away with Vanessa. They checked in at the registration desk, received their name badges, and entered the ballroom. "This is incredible," Vanessa breathed, taking in the elegant setup. "I've never seen the company spend like this." "Well, when you're unveiling the mysterious director, you have to make it worth the hype," Ethan said. He grabbed a champagne flute from a passing waiter. "How much you want to bet she's some old academic who's terrified of public speaking? That's why she's been hiding for 15 years. God, I hope she's not boring. I have to sit through this whole thing." Vanessa spotted colleagues and waved. "Come on, let me introduce you to some people. Network a little." For the next 30 minutes, Ethan worked the room like he belonged there. Shook hands with executives, laughed at jokes, mentioned his business consulting work vaguely enough that no one questioned it.
He was charming.
Amelia had fallen for that charm once. She watched from the private viewing room above the ballroom, accessible only by keycard, where she could see everything while remaining unseen. Ethan was 3 champagnes and now, getting louder, more animated. Vanessa stayed close to his side, introducing him as her boyfriend to colleagues who looked politely confused. "I didn't know you were seeing anyone," one woman said to Vanessa. 6 months now. It's been wonderful." Vanessa beamed. "Ethan's actually going through a divorce right now. From this woman who just let herself go completely. It's really sad." "That is sad," the colleague said, though her tone suggested she thought something else was sad. At 7 p.m., the lights dimmed. A voice over the speaker system. "Please take your seats. The program will begin in 5 minutes." The crowd settled into chairs arranged theater style. Vanessa and Ethan took seats in the middle section, good visibility, surrounded by senior staff.
Perfect.
Amelia checked her reflection one final time. She'd chosen her outfit carefully, a tailored emerald suit that fit her current body perfectly, elegant and powerful. Her hair was styled, her makeup professional. She looked exactly like what she was, a billionaire CEO about to address her company. The weight she'd gained was visible, yes. But she wore it with confidence now. This was her body. The body that had survived a life-threatening illness. The body that Ethan had mocked while it kept her alive. She was done apologizing for existing in it. Sarah Chin appeared at her elbow. "You ready?" "More than ready. Remember, you don't owe them an explanation. Not about your health, not about your marriage, nothing. You're the CEO. That's all that matters." "I know," Amelia smiled, "but I'm going to give one anyway. Because Ethan deserves to hear exactly who he married before I divorce him." Sarah hugged her. "Go destroy him." Down in the ballroom, the lights dimmed further. The VP of Operations, Vanessa's boss, took the stage. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Nexus Tech's 15th Annual Vision Summit. Tonight is special for many reasons, but primarily because we have a historic announcement. For the first time in company history, our founder and CEO, the director, will be joining us in person to share her vision for Nexus Tech's future and unveil our latest breakthrough in quantum encryption. Excited murmurs rippled through the crowd. Ethan leaned over to Vanessa. Wait, the director is a woman? Your boss is female? Yeah, I told you that. Multiple times.
Ha.
I don't remember. Ethan shrugged. Probably some tech nerd who looks like she's never seen sunlight. Sure. Vanessa elbowed him. She might hear you. Who cares? It's not like I work here. Ethan took another sip of champagne. Though if you get that promotion, maybe I should be nicer. Could be useful. On stage, the VP continued. Before we bring out the director, I want to acknowledge the unprecedented growth we've achieved this year. $15 billion in revenue, 3 new international markets, and a commitment to innovation that has made Nexus Tech the global leader in secure communications. Applause. None of this would be possible without the vision, brilliance, and dedication of the woman who founded this company with nothing but a doctoral thesis and a dream. She's been called reclusive, mysterious, even eccentric for her privacy. But those of us who work with her know the truth. She's simply the smartest person in any room, and she doesn't need publicity to prove it. More applause, louder now. Ethan rolled his eyes. God, the corporate worship is nauseating. She's a billionaire, Ethan. Show some respect. Whatever. Let's just get through this so we can leave.
I'm hungry.
The VP smiled. And now, without further delay, please welcome the founder and CEO of Nexus Tech, Dr. Amelia Hayes. The applause was immediate and thunderous. Ethan froze, his champagne glass halfway to his lips. Vanessa's face went white. Did he just say, Amelia Hayes? Ethan's voice was barely a whisper. That's my boss's name. The director. Vanessa's eyes were huge. But that's your wife's name too. That's a coincidence, right? The stage lights came up, and Amelia walked out. The ballroom erupted in applause and standing ovation. 372 people on their feet, welcoming the CEO they'd worked for but never seen. But Amelia only had eyes for 2 people. Vanessa, who'd gone from white to green, her hand pressed to her mouth in horror, and Ethan, who was staring at the stage like he was seeing a ghost. His wife. His fat, pathetic, charity-working wife. In a designer suit. Walking onto a stage. Being introduced as the billionaire founder of a $12 billion company. The company his mistress worked for. The company that had paid for every single thing in his life for the last 10 years. Amelia reached the podium, adjusted the microphone, and let the applause continue for another moment. Then she raised her hand for silence. The room quieted immediately. 400 people hanging on her next words. Amelia smiled, looked directly at Ethan, and spoke. Good evening. For those of you who don't know me, which is most of you, I'm Dr. Amelia Hayes, founder and CEO of Nexus Tech. I've been called the director for 15 years because I prefer privacy and I believe work should speak louder than personality. She paused. But tonight, I'm stepping into the light for a very specific reason. Because some lessons can only be taught publicly. Ethan was shaking, visible tremors running through his body. Vanessa had her hand over her mouth, tears streaming down her face, already understanding that her career was over. Before we discuss quantum encryption and market expansion, I want to share something personal. Because leadership isn't just about business, it's about character. And I want you all to understand the character of the woman leading this company. Amelia's eyes never left Ethan. 2 years ago, I nearly died from an autoimmune disease. The treatment saved my life, but changed my body in ways I couldn't control. I gained weight, significant weight, and I learned very quickly who in my life valued me as a person versus who valued me as an accessory. The room was dead silent. My husband, soon-to-be ex-husband, decided that my weight gain was a character flaw, something shameful, something that justified public mockery, private cruelty, and ultimately, infidelity. Amelia's voice was steady, clinical. He started an affair with one of our employees, spent $73,000 of our joint money on his mistress, and planned to divorce me, believing he'd take half of what he thought was my family trust fund. Gasps throughout the ballroom. Ethan stood up, his chair scraping loudly. Amelia, what are you? Sit down, Ethan. Her voice cracked like a whip. You wanted a public divorce? You humiliated me in restaurants, in front of friends, on social media. Now it's your turn to sit quietly while I speak. He sat. Amelia turned back to the audience. The man who mocked me for being fat had no idea he was living entirely off my income. That I built this company. That I earned every penny he spent on luxury cars and golf club memberships and hotels for his affair. He thought I was a charity worker with family money. She pulled up a slide. Financial records. Every dollar Ethan had spent in the last 6 months. Every hotel with Vanessa. Every piece of jewelry. Every dinner. This is what entitlement looks like. A man who contributes nothing, owns nothing, earns nothing, but believes he deserves everything because his wife had the audacity to survive a medical crisis and gain weight. Vanessa was crying openly now. People around her were shifting away, creating distance. Ethan was red-faced, humiliated, trapped. And Amelia was just getting started. Stop everything. If you're not subscribed right now, you're missing the greatest public takedown in history. Amelia just revealed herself as the billionaire CEO to her cheating husband and his mistress in front of the entire company. And this is just the beginning. Part 4 is going to be even more devastating. Hit that subscribe button like your life depends on it. Smash that like button into oblivion. Drop a comment telling me what you think happens to Ethan next. Because this revenge train has no brakes and you need to be here for every single moment.
Subscribe now. Don't make me beg. Just do it.
Let's finish this together. Ethan stood up again, his face purple with rage and humiliation. You can't do this. Another one. Once I get the divorce settlement, I'm buying a yacht. Gonna find a hot 25-year-old and forget this nightmare. Sent 6 weeks ago. Amelia's voice remained steady. And my personal favorite. Fat wife doesn't even know I'm leaving her. Too busy eating to notice I've checked out. That was sent yesterday. Several women in the audience were crying now. Men looked sick. Vanessa had her face in her hands, sobbing. Miss Keller, did you know these were his thoughts about his wife while he was sleeping with you? Amelia asked.
No, Vanessa Sobed.
He said you were separated. That you didn't love each other anymore. That it was amicable. Did you ever think to verify that? To ask questions about why a married man was pursuing you? I thought he was successful. I thought he had money. You thought he could advance your career. Amelia's voice was sharp now. You pursued a relationship with a man you believed had connections and wealth. You didn't care that he was married. You cared that he seemed useful. That's not fair. Fair? You've been sleeping with my husband for 6 months, complaining to him about your terrible boss who demanded actual competence, planning a future in my house with my money, and you want to talk about fair? Vanessa had no answer. Amelia turned back to Ethan. And you wanted a divorce. You wanted to take half of everything. So, let's discuss the prenuptial agreement you insisted on. A new slide appeared. The prenup. This document, which you had your lawyer draft, states that in the event of divorce, each party retains what they brought into the marriage and earned during it. Joint assets split 50/50ths. Ethan's face showed the first hint of understanding and fear. You brought nothing to this marriage, Ethan. You earned nothing during it. Every asset we own is in my name or held in trusts I control because I earned it. I built it. I paid for it. The next slide showed a comprehensive asset list. The house, Amelia's name. The cars, Amelia's name. The investment accounts, Amelia's name. The retirement funds, Amelia's. According to the prenup you insisted on, you get exactly what you contributed, which is nothing. Ethan's voice was strangled. The house, we lived there together, in a house I purchased before we married and maintained with my income. You have no legal claim to it. Amelia's smile was cold. You also have no claim to alimony, since you have no demonstrated need, and I have evidence of marital misconduct. And the $73,000 you spent on your affair? That's theft of marital assets. I could have you prosecuted. You wouldn't try me. Contest this divorce, and I'll pursue criminal charges. Accept my terms, and you walk away with your personal belongings and nothing else. The room was frozen. This wasn't just a divorce announcement. This was a public execution. Someone in the audience raised a hand tentatively. Dr. Hayes? I don't mean to be inappropriate, but why are you doing this publicly? Amelia looked at the questioner, a young woman, maybe 25, in the engineering department. Because yesterday, my husband mocked me in a restaurant loud enough for 40 people to hear. Called me fat, embarrassing, worthless. Had strangers laughing at my expense while he paraded around in clothes I bought him. Her voice was steel. He chose public humiliation. So, I'm returning the favor. But unlike him, I'm backing my words with facts. She turned to address the full room. I also want everyone here to understand something about this company. Nexus Tech was built by a woman who was told she wasn't smart enough for her doctoral program, who was told women don't succeed in tech, who nearly died and came back stronger. I've hidden for 15 years because I believed my work should speak louder than my presence. Amelia's voice grew stronger. But I'm done hiding. I'm done letting people like Ethan define my worth based on my appearance. I'm done being invisible while mediocre men take credit for things they didn't build and couldn't understand. She looked directly at Ethan. You thought you married a wealthy heiress who'd fund your lifestyle forever. You married a self-made billionaire who was foolish enough to love you. That ends today. Ethan was shaking, tears of humiliation streaming down his face. Vanessa was curled in her chair, destroyed. And Amelia was just getting started. Now, she said, her voice returning to professional efficiency. Let's discuss quantum encryption and why Nexus Tech is about to revolutionize secure communications. Those of you who aren't fired or being divorced, please take notes. This is why we're here. The room shifted. Business. They could handle business. Amelia launched into her presentation, brilliant and commanding, showing exactly why she'd built a $12 billion empire. And Ethan sat in his chair, watching his wife, the woman he'd mocked and betrayed, command a room of hundreds with effortless authority and finally understood what he'd lost. Not her money. Her. The brilliant, powerful woman he'd been too stupid and shallow to see. And now it was too late. Oh my God. Amelia just systematically destroyed them both in front of the entire company and then went right into her business presentation like nothing happened. The power, the confidence, the absolute savage brilliance. If you're not subscribed after witnessing this, I don't know what to tell you. This is legendary. Hit that subscribe button right now.
Destroy that like button.
Comment and tell me if you think Ethan deserves even a shred of sympathy. He doesn't. More secrets, more consequences, more justice. You cannot miss it.
Subscribe.
Like. Comment. Let's watch Amelia take back everything that's hers. Amelia's presentation on quantum encryption lasted 45 minutes. She was brilliant, commanding, fielding technical questions with ease while Ethan sat frozen in his chair, unable to leave without causing an even bigger scene. When she finished, the applause was genuine. Whatever personal drama had just unfolded, the employees recognized genius when they saw it. "Thank you," Amelia said. "Now, before we break for the evening reception, there's one more matter we need to address." The room tensed again. Amelia pulled up a new slide. Legal documents. 6 months ago, shortly after Ethan began his affair with Miss Keller, he consulted with an attorney named Douglas Fairmont about having me declared mentally incompetent. The room erupted in gasps. Ethan shot to his feet. "That's a lie. I never. You met with Fairmont 4 times. Amelia continued calmly. "You discussed using my medical condition, specifically the medication I take for my autoimmune disease, as evidence of diminished mental capacity. You wanted to be appointed my legal guardian, which would give you control over all my assets." She clicked to the next slide. Photos of Ethan entering and leaving a law office, time-stamped and dated. "Fairmont advised you that you'd need medical documentation proving I was unable to manage my own affairs. So you contacted my doctor's office, impersonating me, trying to obtain my medical records." Another slide. Phone records, transcripts. "That's illegal," someone in the audience said. "Very illegal," Amelia agreed. "It's identity theft, attempted fraud, and conspiracy to commit guardianship abuse. All felonies." Ethan's face went from red to white. "You can't prove." "I can prove all of it. I've been documenting everything for 6 months, Ethan. Every meeting with Fairmont, every phone call, every search you did on how to declare someone incompetent. You weren't subtle." Amelia's voice was ice. "You thought I was too sick, too distracted, too stupid to notice. You were wrong on all counts." She pulled up an email chain. "This is correspondence between you and Fairmont discussing how to expedite the incompetency process. Fairmont suggested you could claim I was a danger to myself or others. You discussed fabricating evidence of erratic behavior." "I was exploring options," Ethan shouted. "You were sick. Someone needed to help manage things. I was running a $12 billion company while recovering from surgery. I was managing just fine. What you wanted was access to my money without the inconvenience of my consent." Amelia clicked to another slide, financial projections. "Fairmont estimated that as my guardian, you could pay yourself a management fee of 5% annually. On a portfolio worth approximately $8 billion at the time, That's $400 million a year. For doing nothing except controlling my assets. The number hung in the air. You weren't just cheating on me, Ethan. You were actively trying to steal my fortune by having me declared mentally unfit. And when I wouldn't cooperate by actually being incompetent, you planned to fabricate evidence. Sarah Chin stood up from the front row, where she'd been sitting quietly. I'm Dr. Sarah Chin, Dr. Hayes's personal physician. I was contacted 6 months ago by someone claiming to be Dr. Hayes, requesting copies of her medical records sent to an unknown address. When I called the number back to verify, it was Ethan Hayes's cell phone. She looked at Ethan with disgust. I immediately notified Dr. Hayes of the attempted breach. We filed a police report, and I provided a comprehensive medical evaluation proving that Dr. Hayes is in full control of her faculties and has been throughout her treatment. There is no basis whatsoever for a competency challenge. Amelia smiled slightly.
Thank you, Sarah.
As you can see, Ethan's plan failed on every level, but the attempt was made. The conspiracy existed, and the evidence is documented. She turned to the audience. This is why I'm going public with all of this. Because Ethan Hayes isn't just a cheating husband. He's a predator who tried to use my medical condition, something I couldn't control, to steal everything I'd built. He saw my illness as an opportunity. The horror on people's faces was genuine. If I'd been weaker, if I'd been less careful, if I'd trusted him even slightly, he would have succeeded. I'd be declared incompetent, institutionalized possibly, while he lived in my house and spent my money legally. Vanessa made a choking sound. I didn't know. Ethan, I didn't know you were trying to do that. Of course you didn't, Amelia said, her voice almost pitying. You thought you were dating a successful businessman. You had no idea you were sleeping with a man who was actively trying to steal billions from his disabled wife. Ethan lunged toward the stage. You don't understand.
You were sick.
Someone needed to take control. Security grabbed him before he got close. I was sick. I'm still sick. I'll be managing this condition for the rest of my life, Amelia said clearly. But being sick doesn't make me incompetent. It doesn't make me weak. It doesn't give you the right to steal from me. She looked at him, really looked at him, and felt nothing but contempt. You mocked me for gaining weight. You belittled me for being ill. And when mockery wasn't enough, you tried to have me declared mentally unfit so you could legally steal my fortune. Her voice dropped. You're not just a bad husband, Ethan. You're a criminal. The security guards were holding Ethan back, but his fight was gone. He sagged in their grip, destroyed. The police are waiting outside, Amelia said. You'll be arrested tonight for identity theft and attempted fraud. Fairmont is already in custody. He was arrested this morning. He's cooperating fully in exchange for a reduced sentence. You set me up, Ethan whispered. You've been setting me up this whole time. I've been documenting your crimes this whole time, Amelia corrected. There's a difference. You made every choice. I just made sure there was evidence. She nodded to security. Take him. As the guards led Ethan away, he looked back at Amelia one last time. I loved you, he said, pathetic and desperate. In the beginning, I really loved you. No, Amelia said quietly. You loved what you thought I could give you. You never loved me. If you had, my weight wouldn't have mattered. My illness wouldn't have been an opportunity. You would have seen me as a person instead of a bank account. Ethan was escorted out to waiting police. The ballroom was silent. Amelia took a breath, composed herself, and addressed her employees one final time. I know this has been an unusual vision summit, But I wanted you all to understand who leads this company. Not just my credentials or my business success, but my character. I've survived illness, betrayal, and attempted theft. And I'm still here, still leading, still building. She smiled, genuine for the first time that evening. Nexus Tech was founded on the principle that privacy and security matter, that people deserve protection from those who would exploit them. I've lived that mission personally this year, and I want you to know that the same standards I apply to our technology, I apply to our culture. We don't tolerate exploitation here. We don't tolerate abuse of power. We don't tolerate people who prey on vulnerability. Ms. Keller, security will escort you out. Your final paycheck will be mailed. Vanessa stood on shaking legs and left, crying, her career destroyed. Amelia watched her go, then turned back to the remaining employees. For everyone else, thank you for your work. Thank you for your dedication. And thank you for witnessing what I needed you to see tonight. Now, let's enjoy the reception, celebrate our success, and tomorrow, we change the world. The applause started slowly, then built to something thunderous.
Not just for the CEO.
For the woman who'd refused to be a victim. The reception ended at 11 p.m. Amelia smiled, shook hands, accepted congratulations, and played the role of triumphant CEO perfectly. Then she went home to her empty mansion and collapsed. The adrenaline that had carried her through the evening evaporated, leaving only exhaustion and something that felt disturbingly like grief. She'd won. Ethan was arrested. Vanessa was fired. Her company knew the truth. So, why did she feel so broken? Sarah found her 2 hours later, still in her suit, sitting on the floor of her home office surrounded by photos from her wedding. "Oh, honey," Sarah said, sitting beside her. "I loved him," Amelia whispered. 10 years ago, I really loved him. And some part of me kept hoping he'd remember that he'd see me again instead of just the wait. I know, but he never did. He saw an opportunity, a bank account with a body attached. And when the body changed, he tried to steal the account. Amelia's laugh was bitter. I spent 6 months planning revenge, and I didn't let myself feel how much it hurt. You're allowed to hurt. You're allowed to grieve. I'm a billionaire CEO who just publicly destroyed her husband. I'm not allowed to be weak. You're human. That's not weakness. Amelia's phone buzzed. Then again.
And again.
She looked at the screen. Social media notifications. Hundreds of them. Sarah grabbed the phone, scanned the messages, and her face went pale. Don't read these. Let me see. Amelia, let me see. Sarah handed over the phone reluctantly. The tweets were brutal. Rich woman destroys husband for cheating. Shocking. Oh wait, no it's not. Hashtag gold digger. She humiliated him publicly because he left her. That's abuse. Hashtag men are victims too. Maybe if she'd taken care of herself, he wouldn't have cheated. Just saying. Hashtag personal responsibility. Billionaire uses her money and power to ruin a man's life over an affair. This is why men are afraid of successful women. Hashtag toxic femininity and the worst. She's still fat though. Money can't fix that. Hashtag truth. Amelia read them all, each one a knife. She'd exposed a criminal. A man who'd tried to steal billions by having her declared incompetent. And half the internet was calling her vindictive. There are supportive messages too, Sarah said quickly. Thousands of women saying you're a hero. It doesn't matter. Amelia set down the phone. I knew this would happen. I knew people would side with him anyway. Attractive man versus overweight woman. The narrative writes itself. Her lawyer called at 1 a.m. We have a problem. Ethan's made bail. His mother posted it. She mortgaged her house. And he's scheduled a press conference for tomorrow morning. His new lawyer is spinning this as a case of a bitter, vindictive wife using her power to destroy an innocent man. Amelia closed her eyes. Of course he did. There's more. 3 board members have called emergency meetings. They're concerned about the optics of your public disclosure. They're questioning your judgment. I exposed criminal activity. They think you should have handled it privately. That airing personal grievances at a company event was inappropriate and potentially damaging to shareholder value. The board she controlled, questioning her, because she dared to defend herself publicly. Tell them we'll meet next week, Amelia said tiredly. She hung up and looked at Sarah. I destroyed my marriage, my privacy, and possibly my company's reputation. And Ethan gets to play victim because I'm fat and successful, and that makes me the villain in every story. You did the right thing, did I? Or did I just prove that women can't win? That we're either doormats who accept abuse quietly or vindictive bitches who weaponize our power? For the first time in 6 months, Amelia wondered if she'd made a terrible mistake. Amelia didn't sleep. At 6 a.m., she was back in her home office, reading the coverage of last night's Vision Summit. The tech press was mixed. Some praised her transparency. Others called it unprofessional and a concerning display of personal vendetta. But the business outlets were unanimous. Her stock was up 12%. Investors loved the quantum encryption breakthrough. They loved the expansion plans. They loved that the mysterious director had finally emerged and proved to be exactly as brilliant as rumored. The personal drama? Irrelevant noise, according to Bloomberg.
Her phone rang.
Unknown number. She answered. Dr. Hayes. Dr. Hayes, this is Amanda Chun from the Wall Street Journal. I'm doing a piece on last night's summit, and I wanted to give you a chance to respond to Ethan Hayes' press conference this morning. What press conference? He's claiming you fabricated evidence against him to cover up your own financial mismanagement. That you're using him as a scapegoat for company losses that you've been hiding from shareholders. Amelia went cold. That's absurd. Nexus Tech's financials are public. We're profitable and growing. He has a forensic accountant claiming there are discrepancies in your recent quarterly reports. That billions are unaccounted for. What accountant? Gerald Morrison. He says he used to work for Nexus Tech and has evidence of fraud. Gerald Morrison. James Morrison's brother. The director she'd fired for having an affair with Vanessa. This was retaliation. Mr. Morrison was terminated for ethics violations and has no access to current financial data, Amelia said carefully. Whatever he's claiming is fabricated revenge. So, you'll provide your complete financial records for independent audit. Our books are already audited quarterly by external firms. Everything is available to shareholders and the SEC. Amelia's mind raced. When is this press conference? Starting in 20 minutes. Downtown Hilton. Amelia hung up and called her head of security. I need a car and a security team at my house in 10 minutes. And I need our CFO and legal team on standby. What's happening? Ethan's trying to destroy my company because I destroyed his life. We're going to stop him. She dressed in 5 minutes, another power suit, this one charcoal gray, and was in the car in 8. Sarah called as they drove. I saw the news about the press conference. Amelia, you don't have to respond. Let your lawyers handle it. He's accusing me of financial fraud, of stealing from my own company. I have to respond. What if it's a trap? What if he's trying to provoke you into saying something he can use against you? Then I'll be very careful what I say. Amelia's voice was steel. But I'm not hiding while he spreads lies about my company. I built Nexus Tech. I'm not letting him destroy it. The downtown Hilton was packed with reporters. Ethan stood at a podium, looking sympathetic, victim costume carefully crafted. Beside him stood his new lawyer and Gerald Morrison with a stack of what looked like financial documents. Amelia arrived just as Ethan was mid-sentence. My wife has been hiding financial irregularities for months. Mr. Morrison can verify that billions of dollars are missing from Nexus Tech accounts, money that should be there but mysteriously vanished. That's a lie. Every head turned. Amelia walked down the center aisle, her security team flanking her, cameras swiveling to capture the moment. Dr. Hayes, you weren't invited. Ethan's lawyer started. I'm the CEO of the company you're slandering.
I'm absolutely invited.
Amelia reached the podium. Move. Ethan hesitated, then stepped aside. Amelia faced the cameras. Ethan Hayes is lying. Gerald Morrison is lying. There are no missing billions, no financial irregularities, no fraud. Nexus Tech's books are audited quarterly by PricewaterhouseCoopers. Our financials are public record. Every claim being made here can be disproven in approximately 30 seconds. She pulled out her phone and projected it onto the screen behind her. Nexus Tech's latest quarterly report appeared. Revenue, expenses, profit margins, all meticulously documented. This is our Q3 report, filed with the SEC 6 weeks ago. You can verify every number. Here are our assets, our liabilities, our cash flow. Everything Morrison claims is missing is actually exactly where it should be. Morrison sputtered. Those reports are falsified. They're audited by one of the most prestigious accounting firms in the world and verified by federal regulators. Unless you're claiming the SEC is in on this fraud? Amelia's voice was sharp. You were fired from Nexus Tech 4 months ago for having an inappropriate relationship with a subordinate and inflating her performance reviews. Your brother is James Morrison. You're here for revenge, not truth. That's not. Here's your termination letter. Here's documentation of your ethics violations. Here's the severance package you signed, which included a non-disparagement clause you're currently violating. She displayed each document on the screen. You're in breach of contract, Mr. Morrison. Our lawyers will be filing suit within the hour. Morrison went pale. Ethan tried to regain control. This doesn't change the fact that my wife used her power to destroy me for the crime of falling in love with someone else. You tried to have me declared mentally incompetent to steal my fortune. Amelia interrupted. That's not falling in love. That's attempted theft and fraud. You're facing criminal charges, Ethan. This press conference is a desperate attempt to muddy the waters before your trial. I'm the victim here. You're a criminal who got caught. Amelia turned to the cameras. Last night, I exposed my husband's affair, his attempt to steal my money through guardianship fraud, and his systematic abuse. The evidence is documented. The police have arrested him. His lawyer trying to claim financial fraud is a distraction from the actual crimes he committed. She pulled up another document. This is a sworn affidavit from Douglas Fairmont, the attorney Ethan consulted about having me declared incompetent. Fairmont is cooperating with prosecutors in exchange for reduced charges. He's confirmed that Ethan approached him 6 months ago specifically to discuss how to gain control of my assets by challenging my mental capacity. Ethan's face went white. Fairmont provided emails, phone records, and notes from their meetings. all of which prove conspiracy to commit guardianship fraud. This isn't he said, she said. This is documented criminal activity. A reporter raised her hand. Dr. Hayes, why didn't you pursue this quietly? Why make it public? Amelia paused, choosing her words carefully. Because abuse thrives in silence. Because powerful men count on women being too ashamed to speak up. Because I'm a billionaire with unlimited resources, and I was still trapped in an abusive marriage for 2 years, too embarrassed about my weight gain to admit what was happening. Her voice strengthened. If I can't speak up, how can I expect women with fewer resources to do so? I went public because silence protects abusers. Another reporter. What about the accusations that you're using your wealth as a weapon? I'm using my wealth as a shield. There's a difference. Ethan tried to steal from me. I defended myself with facts and legal action. That's not weaponizing power. That's exercising rights anyone should have. But the public humiliation was mutual. He humiliated me first for months, in restaurants and social settings. I simply responded with evidence instead of insults. Amelia looked directly at the camera. Women are expected to absorb abuse quietly and handle divorce privately, even when their abusers have committed crimes. Men are allowed to hold press conferences painting themselves as victims. I'm done accepting that double standard. The room erupted in shouted questions. But Amelia was done. She stepped away from the podium, leaving Ethan standing there, his narrative in ruins, his lies exposed. As she walked out, her phone exploded with messages. Sarah, you are incredible. Her CFO. Stock just jumped another 8%. Board members are retracting their concerns. Her head of PR. We're getting interview requests from everyone. The narrative is shifting. You're winning. And then one more. From an unknown number. I was in an abusive marriage for 12 years. I never spoke up because I was ashamed. Thank you for showing us we don't have to be. A survivor, Amelia stopped in the hotel lobby, reading that message over and over. She'd been so focused on revenge, on destroying Ethan, on protecting her company. She hadn't realized she was also showing other women that they could fight back. That being powerful didn't mean being perfect. That you could be hurt and angry and still deserve justice. For the first time since the Vision Summit, Amelia smiled. Not because she'd won, but because she'd done the right thing. Even when it was hard. Even when it was public and messy and imperfect. She'd told the truth. And the truth was setting her free. 3 weeks later, Ethan's trial began. The courtroom was packed with media, curious onlookers, and women who'd driven hours to witness what one blogger called the trial of the decade for abuse survivors. Amelia sat in the front row, flanked by Sarah and her legal team. She'd lost 15 pounds from stress, not that it mattered. Her body wasn't on trial. Ethan's crimes were. The prosecution opened with the guardianship fraud case. Douglas Fairmont testified first, looking diminished in his prison jumpsuit, detailing every meeting with Ethan. He wanted complete control of her assets, Fairmont said. He specifically asked how to expedite the incompetency process and whether we could use her autoimmune medication as evidence of diminished capacity. Did Mr. Hayes express concern for his wife's well-being? The prosecutor asked.
No.
He talked about what he'd buy once he had access to her money. A yacht. Properties. He said, and I quote, "Once I'm her guardian, the fat cow can rot in a facility while I live my life." The courtroom gasped. Ethan's lawyer objected, but the damage was done. The prosecution presented emails, phone records, and Ethan's internet search history. How to declare wife incompetent, guardianship, fraud, legal. Can doctor be bribed for mental health diagnosis? It was damning. But Ethan's defense attorney had a strategy. Dr. Hayes is a billionaire with unlimited resources, he argued during his opening statement. She's using this prosecution to punish my client for an affair. This is a powerful woman weaponizing the legal system against a powerless man who made a mistake. The gendered language was deliberate. Powerful woman.
Powerless man.
Amelia felt the jury respond. Saw some of them, particularly the older men, nodding slightly. She was too successful, too rich, too angry. Therefore, she must be lying. The defense called their first witness, Ethan's mother. Martha Hayes was 70, sympathetic, crying on the stand. My son is a good
man.
He made mistakes, yes, but Dr. Hayes has destroyed him. She's so angry about the affair that she's invented these charges to ruin his life. Martha dabbed her eyes. She has billions of dollars. Ethan has nothing. This isn't justice, it's revenge. The prosecutor cross-examined. Mrs. Hayes, did you know your son attempted to access your daughter-in-law's medical records illegally? He was concerned about her health. Did you know he spent $73,000 of her money on his mistress? That's a marriage issue, not a crime. Did you know he consulted an attorney about having her declared mentally incompetent specifically to gain control of her assets? Martha hesitated. He was exploring options to help her. By stealing from her? Objection. Ethan's lawyer jumped up. But the jury had heard it. The trial continued for 4 days. The prosecution methodically presented evidence. The defense tried to paint Amelia as vindictive and Ethan as a victim of a woman scorned. On day 5, the prosecution called their final witness. We call Dr. Amelia Hayes. Amelia took the stand, placed her hand on the Bible, and swore to tell the truth. Ethan's lawyer approached for cross-examination, confidence radiating. Dr. Hayes, you testified that my client mocked your weight gain. Isn't it true that he was simply concerned about your health?
No.
He was disgusted by my appearance. How can you know his internal thoughts? Because he told me. Repeatedly. He said I was embarrassing. That he couldn't stand to look at me. That I'd let myself go. Amelia's voice was steady. Those aren't expressions of health concern. They're expressions of contempt. But you admit your weight gain was significant. I gained weight due to a life-threatening autoimmune disease and the medication that saved my life. I don't admit it like it's shameful. I state it as medical fact. The lawyer shifted tactics. You're a billionaire. You have access to the best trainers, nutritionists, medical care. Why didn't you lose the weight? Because my priority was surviving, not conforming to my husband's aesthetic preferences. And frankly, why I looked the way I did is irrelevant to whether he committed fraud. But isn't it true that your appearance changed your marriage? My appearance didn't change my marriage. My husband's character did. When I was thin and healthy, he loved me for what I could give him. When I was sick and looked different, his true nature showed. The lawyer tried again. You publicly humiliated my client at your company event. I publicly disclosed his crimes at a company event. If he feels humiliated by the truth, that's his conscience, not my fault. You could have handled this privately, like he handled mocking me privately? Oh wait, he didn't. He did it in restaurants, at parties, on social media. I matched his energy. The courtroom rippled with suppressed laughter. Dr. Hayes, isn't this really about revenge? About punishing my client for falling in love with another woman? Amelia leaned forward. Your client didn't fall in love. He strategically pursued an affair while simultaneously trying to have me declared mentally incompetent so he could steal billions of dollars. That's not a romance. That's a crime. You have no proof he intended to steal. I have emails where he discussed how much he'd pay himself annually as my guardian. I have search histories about guardianship fraud. I have testimony from his attorney detailing the plan. Amelia's voice was steel. Your client is a criminal who got caught. The affair is the least of his crimes. The lawyer had no response. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they returned, the four women stood. On the count of attempted guardianship fraud, we find the defendant guilty. On the count of identity theft for attempting to access medical records, we find the defendant guilty. On the count of conspiracy to commit fraud, we find the defendant guilty. Ethan's face crumbled. The judge set sentencing for 2 weeks later, but remanded Ethan to custody immediately. As the bailiff led him away, Ethan looked at Amelia one last time. She stared back, expressionless.
No tears. No triumph.
Just cold certainty that justice had been served. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Dr. Hayes, how do you feel about the verdict? Relieved that the legal system recognized the truth. What message does this send to other abuse survivors? Amelia paused, choosing her words carefully. That powerful abusers count on you staying silent. They count on shame keeping you quiet. But if you speak up, if you document everything, if you refuse to accept abuse as normal, you can win. She looked directly at the camera. You don't have to be a billionaire to demand justice. You just have to be brave enough to tell the truth. What's next for you?
Healing.
Moving forward. And using my platform to help other survivors. She walked away from the courthouse, Sarah beside her, into a future that was finally hers. Ethan was sentenced 3 weeks later, 7 years in federal prison. Vanessa was unemployed, unhireable in the tech industry, facing her own legal consequences for breach of ethics. And Amelia? Amelia was free. 6 months after the trial, Amelia stood in a completely different ballroom. Not the Nexus Tech Vision Summit venue, but a women's shelter in Oakland that she'd just finished renovating with $5 million of her own money. The space was bright, warm, safe. 50 beds for women and children escaping abuse. Full medical facilities. Mental health counseling. Legal aid. Job training programs. Everything Amelia wished had existed for the women who'd been silenced by powerful abusers. This is incredible, Sarah said, walking through the space. You've really created something special here. It's just the first one. We're opening 3 more in the next year. Amelia smiled. Turns out being publicly vulnerable about abuse makes other survivors feel less alone. I've gotten thousands of letters from women who stayed silent for years because they thought no one would believe them. She'd created the Amelia Hayes Foundation with $1 billion, money she'd once shared with Ethan, now redirected to help abuse survivors rebuild their lives. The foundation provided legal representation, medical care, housing, and job placement. Everything someone needed to escape and start over. How are you feeling? Sarah asked. Really?
Better.
Lighter. Amelia touched her stomach. She'd lost some of the weight, gained some back, and finally stopped caring what the number on the scale said. I started therapy, working through the marriage, the abuse, the internalized shame about my body. And I'm learning that my worth isn't determined by my weight or my relationship status or whether men find me attractive. It's determined by what I build, who I help, and how I treat people. Amelia's smile was genuine. Revolutionary concept, apparently. Sarah laughed. Only in a world that measures women by their appearance instead of their achievements. They walked through the shelter, greeting staff, meeting some of the first residents. Women with stories like Amelia's, abuse, gaslighting, control, but now finding safety and support. One woman approached hesitantly. She was maybe 30, wearing donated clothes, her eyes still carrying the haunted look of someone recently escaped. Dr. Hayes?
I'm Michelle.
I just wanted to thank you. I left my husband 3 weeks ago after I watched your trial coverage. You made me realize I wasn't crazy, that what he was doing was abuse, not love. Amelia took her hand. I'm so glad you got out. How can we help? You already are. This place, the legal help, everything. I have a court date next week for custody of my kids. Your foundation got me a lawyer who actually believes me.
Good.
You deserve to be believed. Your kids deserve a safe parent. Michelle's eyes filled with tears. He told me I was worthless, that I'd never survive without him, that I was too fat, too stupid, too broken for anyone else to want. He lied, Amelia said firmly. About all of it. You're here. You're surviving. You're fighting for your children. That's strength, not weakness. Thank you, Michelle whispered, for showing us we can fight back. After Michelle left, Sarah squeezed Amelia's shoulder. You're changing lives. I'm trying to. Ethan destroyed me for 2 years. I'm spending the next 20 making sure other women have tools to fight back faster. Her phone buzzed. A text from her assistant. The Forbes interview is confirmed for next week. They want to discuss Nexus Tech's new initiatives and your foundation work. Amelia had done over 50 interviews in the past 6 months. Some about the trial, most about the foundation. She'd become the face of wealthy women using their resources to combat abuse. The irony wasn't lost on her. She'd hidden for 15 years, and now she couldn't stay out of the spotlight. But it was worth it. Every interview brought more donations, more awareness, more women coming forward. Nexus Tech was thriving. The quantum encryption launch had been wildly successful. Stock was at an all-time high. The board had unanimously supported her foundation work, recognizing that their CEO's public stand had actually enhanced the company's reputation. And Amelia had learned to stop apologizing for taking up space.
She still struggled sometimes.
Still had days where she looked in the mirror and heard Ethan's voice mocking her appearance. Still felt the sting of online comments about her weight. But those voices were getting quieter, drowned out by the chorus of women thanking her for speaking up. 3 weeks later, Amelia returned to the downtown Hilton, the same venue where Ethan had held his disastrous press conference. This time, she was giving the keynote address at a conference on domestic abuse and economic control. 500 people filled the room. Survivors, advocates, lawyers, social workers. Amelia took the stage to a standing ovation. Thank you. 6 months ago, I stood in a different ballroom and exposed my husband's abuse and criminal activity in front of my entire company. People told me I should have handled it privately. That airing personal grievances publicly was unprofessional, vindictive, tacky. She paused. They were wrong. Abuse thrives in privacy. Shame thrives in silence. And powerful abusers count on their victims being too embarrassed, too scared, too convinced they won't be believed to speak up. Amelia clicked to her first slide. I'm a billionaire. I have unlimited resources, top lawyers, a platform, and power. And I was still trapped in an abusive marriage for 2 years because I was ashamed of my body and convinced I deserved the cruelty. The next slide showed statistics. 99% of domestic abuse cases involve financial control. 48% of survivors stay because they can't afford to leave. If I struggled to escape with billions of dollars, imagine what it's like for women with nothing. That's why I started the Amelia Hayes Foundation, to provide resources that make leaving possible. She detailed the foundation's work: legal aid, housing, job training, medical care. Everything needed to rebuild a life. But resources aren't enough.
We need cultural change.
We need to stop treating abuse as a private matter and start treating it as the crime it is. We need to believe survivors. We need to stop asking what they did to deserve it and start asking why abusers think they have the right to control another person. Amelia's voice grew stronger. My ex-husband is in prison. He'll serve 7 years for attempting to steal my fortune by having me declared mentally incompetent. But there are thousands of Ethans who never face consequences, who successfully isolate, control, and destroy their partners, who use shame about weight, age, mental health, or any perceived flaw to maintain power. She looked out at the audience. We end that by speaking up, by documenting everything, by refusing to be ashamed of surviving, and by using whatever platform we have, big or small, to say, this is not acceptable. You deserve better. And there are people ready to help you escape. The applause was deafening. After the keynote, dozens of women lined up to speak with her, to share their stories, to thank her, to ask for advice. Amelia stayed for 3 hours, listening to every single one. As the event ended, she stepped outside for air. Sarah joined her. You okay?
Yeah.
Just overwhelmed. In a good way. Amelia smiled. I spent 15 years hiding because I thought privacy was power. Turns out, vulnerability is more powerful than I ever imagined. Your father would be proud. Your mother, too. Amelia's parents had both died young, part of why she'd worked so hard to build something lasting. They'd never known about Nexus Tech's success or her marriage's failure. But she thought they'd approve of what she was building now. Not just a company, but a legacy of helping others. Her phone buzzed. An email from Michelle, the woman she'd met at the shelter. I won custody. My kids are safe. Thank you for giving me the courage to fight. Amelia showed Sarah, who smiled. One life at a time. One life at a time. Amelia agreed. 6 months later, Amelia celebrated her 40th birthday at the third shelter. Opening. No fancy party. No society friends pretending to care. Just the women whose lives she'd helped change, the staff who made it possible, and Sarah, who'd stood beside her through everything. Speech, someone called out. Amelia laughed and stood. I'm 40 today. 2 years ago, I thought my life was over. I was sick, my husband was cheating, I was convinced my worth had disappeared with my waistline. She looked around the room. But I was wrong. My life wasn't over. It was just beginning. The real version, where I stopped trying to make myself smaller to make someone else comfortable. Where I used my voice instead of hiding it. Where I built something that matters. She raised her glass. So, here's to 40. To second acts. To women who refuse to stay silent. To survivors who become warriors. And to the understanding that you are never too old, too heavy, too damaged, or too anything to deserve respect, safety, and love. Hear, hear. The room erupted in cheers. Later, as Amelia drove home to her mansion, the one that was finally, truly hers. She felt something she hadn't felt in years.
Peace.
Not because she destroyed Ethan, though justice felt good. Not because Nexus Tech was successful, though she was proud of that. But because she'd finally learned to value herself the way she deserved. She pulled into her driveway and looked up at the house. It was too big for one person. She'd thought about selling it, starting fresh somewhere new. But this was her home,
Her space. Her sanctuary.
and she wasn't giving it up for anyone. Amelia walked inside, poured herself a glass of wine, and sat in her home office, the real one, where she'd planned her revenge and built her foundation. On the wall was a framed photo from the Vision Summit. Her at the podium, powerful and unapologetic, revealing the truth about her marriage. The moment everything changed.
She'd gained so much since then. Not money. She'd always had that.
But confidence.
Purpose. Peace.
And the knowledge that she was enough. Not because a man said so. Not because the scale said so. But because she'd survived, fought back, and helped others do the same. Amelia's phone buzzed one last time. A message from an unknown number. I'm leaving my husband tomorrow. I've been planning for 6 months, just like you did. Your story gave me courage. Thank you for showing us we can win. Another survivor, Amelia smiled, replied with the foundation's contact information and resources, and set down her phone. She'd started this journey wanting revenge. She'd found something better. Redemption. Not for Ethan, he could rot in prison for all she cared. But for herself. For the woman who'd been told she was worthless and had believed it. For the girl who'd built an empire and hidden from the world. For the survivor who'd learned that speaking truth to power wasn't just possible, it was necessary. Amelia raised her glass to her reflection in the window. To me, she said, the billionaire they tried to silence. The wife they tried to erase. The woman who refused to disappear. And somewhere in the city, in shelters and safe houses and homes where women were planning their escapes, her story was being shared. Proof that you could be mocked, betrayed, and underestimated, and still win.